This Saturday, the college football playoff begins. Two big games, the Final Four, if you will. We have Michael Johnson of the Not That Serious podcast. He is a videographer, filmographer, and photographer. He is joining me as my college football analyst. He's a big guy. He was on here early in the season when we talked about Alabama. There's some lost files out there of him also being on here again, previewing the playoffs, but there's some tech difficulties on that. But he was gracious enough to join me again to officially break down the college football playoffs. We're going to welcome in Michael Johnson of the Not That Serious podcast, filmographer, photographer, videographer. Welcome, sir, again, for now the third time unofficially, but the second time officially to the CMD podcast. What's good, bro?
What's up, man? How you doing?
Good, bro. Good, bro. So glad that you're able to spin the block and come back again. Because this college football playoff kind of worked out like we thought it would. There was a lot of scenarios heading into what we were talking about, heading into the championship, conference championship games, and it kind of broke right where TCU, even though they take a L in the Big 12 conference championship game, is able to find their way back into the 3 seed and take on, you're wearing the cap, you're wearing the cap. So let's start there, because obviously I want you to get your big, amazing blue talk off early. Michigan, TCU. Everyone seems to think this should be a layup. Vegas thinks that this is going to be a layup. Heavy favorites, I think it's minus 344 at the sports books in terms of the money line for Michigan. Obviously, you're a guy. Obviously, I'm assuming you're going to think they're going to win. But is there any trepidations, any concerns of what TCU, Max Duggan, and all of that? Is there any concern on your part for
Just minor. Nothing. TCU doesn't scare me. It only scare me because, they got that underdog, thing. And
Right.
Max Duggan kind of thrives on that underdog thing. But as Michigan has proved all year, they can overcome. They actually only one time really had to overcome anything. So other than just that minor, just a Max Duggan, but I got confidence, now that a lot of players are getting healthier. They're still riding a high, and they also, from a lot of the interviews and everything, articles I've read, like they're focused. Last year they were happy to be there. They were doing all the activity, the ball game activities and stuff. But I read that this year they're not even, only the non-travel guys are doing all that. Following the team, following Instagram or anything, they went to Top Golf, and there's a bunch of dudes on there on the photos that I'd never really seen before. And that's because the team that's, the starters and the backups and everything, the guys who are actually suiting up and going to play are focused. They're not doing all that bowl game stuff. And they're taking this as a business trip, and they want to get to the national championship. That last year they were just happy to be there. But it's more than being happy to be there this year, and that's why I have a lot of confidence going into this game.
Yeah, and speaking on the game, obviously we want to get into the keys to victory for both teams. We don't want to assume, even though they're heavy favorites, and you seem very confident as a guy, as you should, with the team that has the more talent, a lot of depth, all of that. But in terms of your specific keys to victory for I took down a couple of notes, and you tell me if I'm off base or if there's something I'm missing here. I think the keys to victory for Michigan, clearly they have to run the ball, right? Obviously, with no Blake Corum, they have Donovan has been able to step in there. Donovan Edwards been able to get like almost 400 yards over the 2 games as he started since Blake Corum went down. J.J. McCarthy, we've talked about him even earlier in the season, about him and his precision passing being accurate. And then also, I think TCU, if you go back and watch that Big 12 championship game against Kansas State, they were gassed at the very end of that game there. And that probably was what cost them more so than anything else. So running the ball, obviously, and JJ being able to take care of the rock and be accurate with his passes and hit the big plays when they come. And clearly just exposing the lack of depth that TCU has in comparison to Michigan. Are those 3 things that you're looking for? Is there anything more? What are you seeing here?
I mean, pretty much, especially as you're saying them being gassed. And if you haven't watched any Michigan game, you could tell that Michigan looks like a fresh team in the second half. In the fourth quarter, they're still rocking,
Right.
and that's due to their strength and conditioning coach Ben Herbert. But yeah, that you can't come into you can't be gassed in the fourth quarter if you're TCU, because Michigan. That's what Michigan does. They're like a MMA fighter who's almost like a wrestler type who would lean on you on the cage or lean on you on the ground and ground and pound, because the more someone leans on you, the more you're going to get gassed out because you're trying so hard to get out of a situation and you're using all your energy, and that's what Michigan does to people. And I talk about this a lot with my Michigan buddies. Their O line, they're one of the few, if any, O line who rotates guys in and out. If you don't notice or not, they play about 7 O linemen. No team really does that, and they rotate other than the center. They pretty much have a guy that spells, one of the guards, and then another guy who spells one of the tackles. That's a key too, especially if you're a team that runs the ball a lot. They just bully a lot of people, and Donovan Edwards is good enough to take over Blake Corum, which I wasn't worried about when Blake went down. Well, I was only slightly worried because Donovan Edwards was out for a little bit. But as we saw in the second half of the Ohio State game, and then the full Big Ten championship game, it didn't matter. They got pieces in the backfield that are very capable.
Yeah, and to the point about Michigan being a strong second half team, I saw a stat where they was like they had the highest point differential of any team in the second half in the country. And the funny thing about it is TCU was fifth, so both teams actually can play strong in the second half. But to your point, if TCU is going to get gassed by Kansas State, then yeah, they could be in for a long afternoon against UM. And I think something you mentioned there about the O line and being able to just maul teams. I think something to watch here is, will Michigan just basically kill the clock by just mauling them with Donovan Edwards, mauling them with that offensive line, rotating 7 guys in like you mentioned? Is this it? Sometimes football can be really simple, run the ball, stop the run. But is it really just going to be that simple for Michigan? Just as long as they just continue to just run the ball, ground and pound, like you mentioned with the MMA, is it really just going to be that simple? In a game of this type of magnitude, in a game that come down to the final 4 teams in the whole entire country of D1 football, is it really just going to come down to we're just going to run the ball at you and just dare you to stop us?
You know what? I think in the last 2 games we saw that Michigan's more than just a running team as well. And I think part of it was like they were playing possum into that last game of the season, which I kind of don't like. But like the point of us wanting JJ McCarthy in was because he can do so many other things. Because he does have an arm. He can be a
Hmm.
little inaccurate, but he can throw the deep ball, as we saw against
Right.
Ohio State. And he's very dynamic with his, like he has the ability to run, or he has the ability just to make plays with his legs. So the key is going to be try to stop the run, but it's just going to open up the pass.
Right.
And I think Michigan is a very balanced team. We just haven't shown that all year because partially because we didn't have to.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like if you're going to gash people for 50 plus yards running, on plays and stuff like that, you don't need. If you're doing over 200 yards rushing,
Right.
why do you need the pass? Especially
Exactly.
if you
Yeah.
have a lead.
Exactly.
So Michigan only had to do that a few times this year, but when he can't, I mean, the kid only has like 20 touchdowns, almost 20 touchdowns, passing and only what 3 interceptions, I think.
Right.
He's
No, he's
very
accurate.
accurate. I think in the
Yeah.
last few games he was just been a little off, but his numbers in the beginning of the year were pretty good, and especially for it being his first year starting. But I think those last 2 games they were trying not to show their hand against Ohio State, and And now you see if you load the box, sometimes it don't even matter if you load the box. As we saw against Ohio State, as we saw against Purdue. Load the box all you want. Can your guys beat my guys? That's the thing. And I don't think
Yeah.
TCU being in the Big 12, being what was it? Hell, they have 3 weeks to prepare. They
Right.
run a 3-3-5. I don't think you can prepare
That
for
ain't
that
stopping no run game. 3-5 ain't
in
stopping no
three.
run game, man.
Yeah. So they can load the
Yeah.
box all. You saw what happened when Ohio State loaded the box. Two
Right.
70+ yard touchdowns because they went
Right.
hat on the hat. And once you have that guy in the secondary not there anymore, it's just gone. Same thing happened in Purdue. There was a play they had loaded. They had 3 tight ends on the left, and they doubled up. Linemen, 2 linemen doubling on a defensive player, and then going to the
Mm-hmm.
second level. And all Donovan Edwards had to do was beat one guy, and he beat one guy.
Right.
So you could. It was almost like Michigan almost dared. Like you can try to beat it, but we know we're going to power you. But then if you do that, we could still go over the top.
Facts. Facts. And I think, if you had to paint a scenario to where TCU can win this game, is it more about Dugan has to play out of his mind? Is it more about maybe TCU goes up tempo to try to wear you guys out on both on the D line? Maybe like is there paint a scenario? I know you don't want to because you're a UM guy, but if there was a way as a guy that knows this team because you've watched them, where can TCU expose, if anything, something on this Michigan defense? If you were on TCU and you were trying to plan a plan of attack on offense against the Michigan defense, where would you begin that plan?
The only weakness, which is not a weakness, was just actually becoming a strength at this point. If you saw the last 2 games, the kid Will Johnson,
Okay,
it'll be at corner, but it'll be at
vulnerable.
corner if only if that matchup with Quentin Johnson versus I would say maybe DJ Turner or
Okay,
even Jamon Green because they're smaller. Um, Will Johnson is 6'2".
mm,
Quentin Johnson's what he's like 6'4", 6'5".
yeah, he's big.
So
Yeah,
he can match. So we got a big receiver. If he's matched up against DJ Turner, who's only about 6 foot, Jamon Green, who's only about 5'10". Mike Sanders still won't be on him because he's more of a nickel slot guy. But that's the only way I can see because we have a great D line as well. We have a great
mm-hmm.
front set. Like it's just a I seen one of the dudes, McGregor. He said we don't have a no-star defense. We have an all-star defense. And that's because, once again, it's same as the O-line, but even in more that we have a lot of guys who rotate. We rotate a lot on all levels of the game. Rotate on defensive line a lot. We rotate on, linebackers. Linebacker might be our quote-unquote weakness because we don't have that much depth there because of injury. And then we just have some young players coming in on that, second half in the 2 deep. But yeah, it's going to be hard to really run against them. They're one of the best rush defenses, and they're one of the best pass defense. But the only thing I can see is just the matchup with the receiver if he's on a smaller guy.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm trying to navigate here, trying to look up what the defense has done here. They're only giving up 200. They're giving up under 200 yards passing, 85 yards rushing, and I'm sure a lot of those might have been padded because of blowouts. But yeah, the defense doesn't really have a lot of exposure in terms of like holes or some points of attack, and I think unless Dugan goes crazy here, and that's running and throwing, not just through the air, but also taking advantage of his size, whether it's on the goal line or just short yardage, being able to take advantage of him that way. I think that's the only way I can see TCU even keeping this game close. To be quite honest with you, and it's going to take an otherworldly performance. It's going to take something where maybe JJ's a little erratic. Maybe the running game isn't as dominant, but it's hard for me to it's hard for me to fathom both of those things happening. I could see a game where maybe the running game isn't as dominant, but then maybe JJ takes over and vice versa, where maybe JJ's not really on it, but the running game, y'all go ahead and put up 200 plus. But I can't see both of those things happening. And I think for TCU to be legitimately in this game and potentially win this game, both of those things have to happen.
Yeah, and even in times where we've seen the Ohio State game in the first half, Michigan couldn't run the ball, but they stayed in the game because JJ.
Yeah.
JJ was able to do in the pass game, and then you saw what happened in the second half with the run game. So yeah, it's gonna be hard. TCU just is gonna be Dugan. The only thing is, I just hope they have a spy because not saying not this year at least. We haven't really seen much of it, but Michigan has had trouble with quarterbacks that can run. But I think this is a different type of defense where I wouldn't say smarter, but I guess smarter defensive coordinators. We had in the past where we were just running just all man all the time when the Don Brown era, which was he still had a really good defense, but he just couldn't stop crossing routes for some reason.
Gotcha.
But yeah, it's gonna be Michigan's a really complete team.
For sure.
And only one team has really gave them trouble. And that was a team with a really good defense. And it had a really good running game.
Right. And you can argue that TCU does not have either of those things. They do not have, that good of a defense, and their running game outside of Dugan is not really nothing to write home about.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess clearly, if you want to give a score, I mean, clearly I think you think Michigan's going to win, but do you want to go ahead and give a score here? The spread was, I think, 7.5. Are you taking those points?
Score, but I do think Michigan to get to mid-30s.
Mid-30s, okay. And according to this, they put up 40 a game, so that's close to their average.
They put up 40 a game. Yeah, man, they're a complete team. They won other than Georgia, they're pretty much a complete team. They can beat you in all three aspects of the game: offense, defense, and special teams.
Do you think the way that this playoff set up, that we're all just kind of waiting for the Michigan Georgia rematch? Like, it kind of seems to be that way for me, where it's like, yeah, Ohio State was able to, in my opinion, backdoor their way into the fourth spot, and I get all the reasons why. But I think when it comes right down to it, the two best teams that have stood the test of the time over the course of the whole season have been Michigan and Georgia.
Yeah, they've been the two best teams. You can have an argument that Michigan could be number one at some time at points of the season,
right?
But Georgia's the defending champion. You can't deny that. They have slight stumbles this season. I don't think they're as dominant as they were last year because they did lose a lot.
A ton of talent, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of talent. I don't think they're just. I think Michigan and Georgia rematch. I think Michigan can get them.
Okay.
And I see these guys very motivated to do that.
Well, let's just go ahead and get over to Georgia, because clearly, we're both in agreement that Michigan will take care of TCU and in their Cinderella season. So then that leaves us with Georgia versus Ohio State. And, I think if we're talking about the keys to victory for Georgia, I think the main thing is, even though Ohio State's not known for their running game, I think they're going to try to establish a running game. And I think the key will be clearly with the D-line that they have, whether it's years past or even this year, stopping the running game. I think everything has to be predicated on first line of business, stopping the run. Now, I think they need to apply pressure to C.J. Stroud. And there was another stat I was able to locate, is that C.J. Stroud's accuracy drops 20% when he's flushed or hurried out of the pocket. That's a big drop for someone that's mobile, someone that you would assume can throw on a run and has the type of dynamic playmaking ability to be able to capitalize on that. So the fact that when he's hurried or under pressure, his completion percentage drops 20%, that's something if you're Georgia, you're going to have to really apply that pressure, whether it's blitzing. I know they could probably get home with 4, but I think they need to turn that up a notch knowing a stat like that. And then lastly, because everything begins and ends in the trenches, that Georgia O-line, can they do what your team, Michigan, did to Ohio State and just maul them at the line of scrimmage? So those are the 3 things just off the top that I have for, Georgia trying to figure out how to stop Ohio State. As someone that knows Ohio State very well, what else do you see, or do you want to expound on any of those?
I mean, they're pretty much the same team. Especially mentioned the O-line. Those 2 teams, Michigan and Georgia, were up for the Joe Moore Award again. Michigan winning it again back-to-back years, but they're pretty much the same team. Georgia doesn't have that star running back or star running. Actually, they're about the same too, where they're almost like a no star type team. They got a few guys, especially on the defensive side, but not as much as they did last year. But there's no guy on the no running back that's the guy, but they can run the ball.
Right.
And Stetson Bennett can make some plays.
So then let's flip that. If you're Ohio State, is the key because they don't really because the Georgia thing is kind of, they overwhelm you with just the sum of their parts more so than just one guy. Do you want to force Stetson Bennett? We saw LSU try to force Stetson Bennett to beat them and he damn sure did in the first half, 4 touchdowns. So if you're Ohio State, do you force Stetson Bennett to try to beat you? Or, obviously we know Georgia's going to try to come out and run the rock. But if you sell out on running the rock, then you're allowing Stetson Bennett to potentially beat you. Are you willing to live and die with that if you're Ohio State?
I don't know, because I feel like Ohio State's trying to make up for what happened in Michigan game, and I think they'll be too focused on that, and Stetson Bennett might capitalize on that, passing or I don't know. I think Ohio State's a little overmatched.
Really?
They're going to have, I guess they're going to have. It's the same team as Michigan, and they're going to try to do something to stop, but they don't have the guys. They just don't have the guys to stop something they will get bullied.
Well, that's that's the last place you want to be if you're going to against a school like Georgia. Like that's the last thing you want to try to see coming in as a school that, just like you said in Michigan, can maul you at the point of attack. So that to me would be. So are we looking at 2 blowouts here? Because I mean, if Georgia is going to maul Ohio State at the point of attack on the line of scrimmage, then this game's a wrap. There's really nothing. I mean, outside of Ohio State maybe hitting a couple of big plays. I mean, if Georgia's able to control the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball and just overwhelm Ohio State, then this game should be, Swiss cheese easy as well.
Yeah, the only reason why I don't say, because it is Ohio State, they do have a high-powered offense.
Right.
But I wouldn't say blowout, but I think Georgia would take it.
Okay.
I don't think it's going to be like Michigan and TCU where it's overwhelming. They're overwhelming the better team. Georgia, there could be a slither of something for Ohio State, but like we talked about, the same thing. It's hard to do something in 3 weeks. You can't just change your identity. You can't change guys that quickly. They can't be a bully in that little bit of time.
Yeah, I'm trying to navigate here and trying to, I guess this, and this is what I didn't want to where it's like it's almost anticlimactic. And I think that's I know, me and you spoke about how we can't wait for this thing to expand and that's coming very soon. But as to where we're at right now, where we both clearly know that Michigan is better than TCU, and the way that we saw Ohio State got overwhelmed by Michigan, the fact that Georgia is very much built in the same light as Michigan, we can only assume it's going to be a similar outcome. Maybe not the blowout like Ohio State, in Michigan game, but certainly a decisive victory for Georgia. I'll throw this wild card out there. If CJ Stroud is able to sit in the pocket, if they're not able to flush him out to where his accuracy drops 20%, if he's able to, I don't know. Well, let's start here. Should Georgia double Marvin Harrison? Is he that good to where he warrants getting doubled all over the field, or do you pick your spots with him?
You don't have to double him. We saw Michigan, they didn't have to double him, but that's what everyone's focused on. But you forget, you double a guy. Ohio State still has weapons.
Right.
They still have, and I think they're going to get one of their running backs back. I think Mayan Williams is coming back.
Okay.
But they still have weapons at receiver other than Marvin Harrison. Now they don't have as many as they did last year or even this year because Smith and Jigba is going to sit out, even though he doesn't have to. But
right, he's got the hammy, right?
Yeah,
he's got the bad hammy.
Hammy all year.
Yeah, man's just trying to get ready for the draft. It's all good.
They have weapons still. I think I wouldn't double him, but I would definitely keep that safety high. Just keep that safety up there. Don't
a little bit of bracket coverage.
Don't want to take someone away.
Yeah.
Because so then there's other ways.
So then there's not really too much of a scenario here. Then it kind of just seems to me like we're going to watch these games clearly, and we're going to watch things play out. But if things go the way they're supposed to, barring any sort of unforeseen injuries or some crazy mishaps or what have you, or JJ shitting the bed and Georgia somehow leaving their games on the bus, we're looking at Michigan, Georgia. So let's go ahead and just play that forward. Michigan, Georgia, clearly you're invested heavily. You've been wanting this rematch. You potentially get your rematch. Now, how do you see that playing out? Michigan, Georgia.
I think everybody favors Georgia, rightfully so, defending champion. But I think it's a different team. They're both different teams. One, I think, improved, and one just not saying they just had a little drop off, but that's because they lost so much. And another, they're just super motivated from last year. And you see what happens when a team like Michigan is motivated. They, not only what they did last year against Ohio State, but then seeing what they've been doing all season. They've been working hard to get to this point. And that's why I think Michigan has a chance to beat Georgia.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull up the box score from that last matchup here. Just we can kind of go over that real quick over there in the Orange Bowl. So we can pull that up here. Where we at? Screen share. Boom. Okay. So don't let that score fool you. 34-11. They jumped out early. So what, as we go over this from last year's game, the improvements clearly are at the quarterback position one. Where else has Michigan gotten better from last year's matchup where they lost 34-11?
Secondary.
Okay.
That secondary, Vincent Gray was getting torched. I don't know if you remember, there was a play where he was just like lost and looks like he quit on a play. And Georgia, and I think it was George Pickens was playing, and he was bullying those guys.
Yeah.
You know, bullying a lot of them. I think the difference, not bullying in the sense of like, there was one where he was out blocking, and we see how George Pickens is in the NFL.
Yeah.
He'll just maul dudes, and he was doing
Yeah.
that. And I think there's a bit of a difference there. Um, being a little bigger on the outside, like the kid Will Johnson, is just incredible. We saw what he did in the Big Ten championship game. He's improved pretty much every week, and and when he had the opportunity to become a starter, he never let go of it. And he's going to become the next great Michigan defensive player.
Is he entering Woodson territory for you?
He's getting there. On the defensive side, Woodson territory is a little different because Woodson did more than just
Correct.
what he did on defense.
Right.
He was dynamic in all. They had him on offense and also special teams. But as a corner, yeah, especially as starting as a freshman. Seeing what he
Yeah,
did.
that's huge here.
He had 2 picks in the Big Ten championship game. 2 great picks. The way he played those balls are great.
Right.
And he's a big kid, and he's only 18, 19. He's only get bigger. He's not done growing.
Right. Skill set's huge there. Okay.
Yeah. So I see we have and our nickel corner, Mike Samerstill, the kid that went from receiver to DB. Like I said, we don't have any stars. We do have guys. Like McGregor said, we have all stars. We don't have just the 1 or 2 guys this year where it was like Aiden Hutchinson and you just gotta key in on him or key in on Ojobo. We have on D line, we have some guys on D secondary. Like I said, it's only a weakness because we don't have that much depth right now. It's just linebacker, but the linebackers are solid. The linebackers are very solid.
So now to play that all the way forward, because we're sitting here trying to figure out, and I'm with Michael Johnson, videographer, filmographer, photographer, also with Not That Serious podcast. What we're trying to navigate here, Ohio State, TCU fall by the wayside, setting up a Georgia-Michigan national championship game. We're trying to navigate the do's and the don'ts for each squad. Now, MJ, as we call him, has broken down why Michigan is better. Now, is there any trepidations? Is there anything you've seen from Georgia this year that gives you pause? Because as you mentioned earlier, when we were breaking down the 2 semifinals games, both these teams are built in a very similar fashion. So could that play? Can Georgia out Michigan? Is that something that could potentially happen here?
Yeah, it can because they are, defending champ, and then the vaunted SEC.
Right.
They have the better players, but I think Michigan matches up well. I just think Michigan has a motive. Like they're motivated. It's hard to beat a team. You see what happens when you have a motivated team out there, and you see they're about business. Like I said, they don't want to like I said last year. They were happy to be there. They were going through all those activities, the bowl game activities. I didn't see them do that once. And like I said, I see the interviews and everything. They're not worried about that. They're not partaking in it because they're focused. And it's hard to beat a team like that. And a team that's focused and talented, it's going to be hard.
So now let's go ahead and play that out. So clearly you even favor Michigan in the game, national championship on the line against Georgia. Do you want to give me a prediction there?
I think Michigan will win. It's going to be a very good game. Obviously Georgia has the more talent.
Right.
But Ohio State also has more talent. But I think Michigan, especially we saw this year, they develop guys. They know how to develop. You can have all the talent in the world, but if you don't know how to develop them, you know, you can't just beat guys just with 5 stars and they don't improve on their game at all. I think Michigan does that, and Michigan gets that with guys that weren't the talent most, they're 3 or 4 star guys.
Right.
And I think also the thing that kind of works in Michigan's favor, they're great in the portal. They
Yeah.
which is in a sense better because you're getting guys who are already accustomed to the game, already to the college football game, rather than having to adjust them coming from high school. You're
Is
getting
being big
guys
in the
who are
portal?
starter.
Mm-hmm. Is being big in the portal almost more important than actually recruiting top classes? Because as you mentioned, you can potentially swoop in and get another school's 5 star or 4 star after a year or two. So even if you miss out on the front end on signing day, you might be able to spin the block in 8-9 months and be able to go get the guy that you missed on. So is having a top recruiting class even that doesn't have the same cachet? I mean, you could swoop in and go get that same kid in the portal.
Yeah, because a perfect example. I mean, I know I'm talking like in Michigan, but it's because it's the team I follow, and I
Mm-hmm.
know Michigan center. He came from Virginia. He was I think Remington. Like he was all these. He's one of the top centers in the college last season. We get him for another year, and he's the best center in all of college football.
Wow.
And you can't get that off a high school graduate.
Right.
You get a guy who's 2 to 3, maybe even 4 year starter, and
Mm-hmm.
now you just place him on a team that's already, with experience on the O line. You just replace another, a good center, but even better. And Michigan is doing it again in the portal. They got about they're going to replace him next year with a guy that from Stanford. Uh, they're going to replace 2 other offensive linemen. You already get these dudes who already have experience in college and who can go to the next level, but then even just especially with the coaching staff can even improve on their game even more. So I think the portal is almost better because you can plug in. You have more of a
Plug and play.
yeah.
Yeah,
You
for
can
sure.
the experience matters.
Yeah.
Uh, it,
Agreed.
you, you can guarantee with that dude that has experience than the kid that's just coming in. You know, I don't know. Like stories you hear all the time with kids. They go to high school, they're the man, they're the man at their high school, they're the man in their county, whatever like that. Then they get to college and just the practice, and their eyes are open. Like it's a different game, it's a different speed.
For
You don't have
sure.
to get that with a portal guy because a portal guy already it's going through that. His eyes are not wide open.
Yeah, I think to your point, if you can really lock in on that portal and just plug and play guys, I think that's way more important than having a top notch recruiting class because, you know, we talked about Caleb Williams earlier on the first time you on and the way that he followed Lincoln Riley. So that kind of, blew up that, Oklahoma recruiting class. Like it really doesn't matter if the player doesn't stay. And so these rankings that everyone goes gaga for every signing day kind of all is predicated on if the player actually stays for a certain amount of time, if the player stays to their junior year or even their senior year on rare occasions. So I think being able to just plug and play guys, you get a whole bunch of guys who leave for the draft. All right, let's go in the portal and go get a whole slew of other teams 4 and 5 stars and just bring them into the fold. And I think
No,
that's
yeah,
where,
but
go ahead.
developing. If you don't know
Correct.
how to develop those guys, yeah, they can have, like I said, we can have all the talent, but you got to adjust them to the game, adjust them to your offense.
Right.
Another thing with the portal that is different, a lot of times, I forget who said it, but when you get these 4 or 5 star guys, you're kind of catering to them. Whereas in the portal, you can get guys that cater to you.
Agreed. Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, a
So I think
lot of
that's
times
the
you see where players aren't a good fit, right? You see a kid that comes out here, I'm going to go to this program because they have this coach or they have this system. And then they show up and they realize, oh, I'm not either one, I'm not going to get no run, or two, this isn't the system I thought it was going to be. So I'm out. Now I could go to another school and where I'm a better fit, get better coaching, better training, better system, whatever the case may be. And you could just keep bouncing around. Or if you're JT Daniels, just keep going wherever the biggest bag is and just cash out on NIL deals left and right. You know what I'm saying?
I
So
don't even know. I wouldn't even say that's this. I don't know. That situation is just funny to me.
JT
There
Daniels,
has to
right?
be, yeah, there has to be at some point where there's going to be a limit.
Well, that's something I definitely wanted to get into it with you because there's now growing sentiment with boosters and even coaches who have been, we know how Dabo gives it up. He's very anti NIL, but when you see someone like
No,
JT
he's not
Daniels, who,
anti NIL. He likes the name and likeness of Jesus.
well, yes, that whole part of the scam, you know what I'm saying? So, he's doing the Southern college football coach thing by, putting God over everything, and it works to a certain degree. But when you have JT Daniels, and I think there was even a QB from LSU, I forget who his name is, but he didn't even play. He just cashed out on the NIL deal and just walked away. Clearly, players are finagling the system. Hey, I don't have any pro prospects, but I'm a great high school quarterback. I'm going to leverage that to get a couple of mil. And then I don't even have to make the NFL. I can just live off of the couple of mil I can get from an NIL deal. And JT Daniels is, I think, the latest that's just kind of, NIL hopping from, Power 5 to Power 5, from
Well, I don't
USC
know
to
because
Georgia to West Virginia to I forget where he's at now.
yeah, but I think the team he's at now is not no one crazy. I don't think that I forget where he ended up, but it was nowhere where you
Let me
thought. And
look it up.
when he when he picked it, I was like, oh, that was kind of
Let's
I
see.
was thinking like, is he trying to go to every conference? Like,
Basically, right?
what's his goal?
Oh, he's transferring to
Oh, he went to
Rice.
Rice.
Yeah, he's in
Yeah.
Rice. I
So yeah,
mean,
so
if someone at Rice is willing to open the bank, like
I
if
I
he
don't
was
know.
able to get a mill out of Rice, then that's legendary. If he got a mill out of
I
Rice,
mean, whatever. I guess, but I guess if that's the case, and he is chasing the NIL deal, but
facts.
I
I
don't know. I
clearly
don't know.
think that
I
that's what
don't
he's
know.
doing.
Yeah, but I don't know if Rice has that much going for them. Um,
I mean, they
yeah,
could be
his
like Colorado and
situation.
Deion, right? Where they're like, "Hey, we'll tell you we're going to pay you, and then we'll run and go find the bread after the fact. Like we may not have it
Well,
right
I
now, but
think,
we will find it."
but Colorado actually has, they have some guys there that can probably, it still is University
Ah,
College, Colorado. Not, but they still have guys that can pitch in. That who do you know that came out of Rice?
that- literally no one in any sport. I
Exactly,
can't even give you a basketball player. So
exactly. In Colorado, you can name a few, and Colorado has had Heisman Trophy winners
right,
and stuff like that. Colorado was a very
it
good
was a
program at
powerhouse.
some point.
Yeah. Let's
Yeah,
see, Rice
it,
football
it,
players in the NFL. Oh, wait a minute now. They got a we apparently are sleeping on Rice University. Chris Boswell, Luke Wilson, Brian
a,
Callahan. I mean,
a, a second string tight end and a punter.
I mean, so this is the legacy of JT Daniels is walking into. Maybe they got Chris Boswell to kick up some bread to help pay that NIL
I
deal.
guess. Hey, Colorado, I can name on top of it. They got Cordell Stewart.
For sure. Michael Westbrook, Rashawn Salam, but rest in peace. Long live Rashawn Salam, Heisman Trophy winner. So, no,
Joel Klatt.
that Joe Klatt. Yeah, I mean, look, Colorado for sure is a Power 5, Pac-12, the whole deal. So we understand that. I just think it's hilarious how if you are leveraging the system, because here's the thing, if you're some guys are just college players, like there's no pro prospects. If you're able to cash out on your college on the peak of your athletics, if you're the peak of your athletic ability or your apex of your athletic ability, which is college football, if I could go get a couple of M's just by hopping around for a few years, I'm not mad at that, because after that, you're done. It's not like JT Daniels has any
Yeah,
really pro prospects. I mean, he's playing at Rice now. So we know he's not going to make it to
yeah.
the league. So if I could cash out
I
one
think
more
that
time,
there's two differences. There are the guys who are just chasing the NIL bag, but there are all the guys who like they thought they were going to be the man, and then they're not the man, so they got to leave. Like that's the point. That's the part I don't like about it. Is like you're running away from competition type,
running away from the grind.
running away from the grind. I think some of those guys are doing that. There's some guys out there who are definitely doing that,
Do you think
mainly
DJ
at the
is running away from the
quarterback.
grind?
I don't know. I think in the beginning maybe it kind of was, because when he was
Hmm.
at Georgia, I think Justin Fields was took his spot, but I think he was hurt, uh, and he couldn't beat out just Stetson Bennett. Where was he at again? I think wasn't he at USC too?
DJ, I believe so. I'll double check.
No, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of
You talking about
JT.
JT? Oh, no, no, no. Yeah, yeah. DJ's Clemson. And was he somewhere else
Yeah,
before Clemson?
no. You're right. You're right. I was thinking JT Daniels. I think he needs to go to. I think he needed a different scenery. I don't think he was a good fit at Clemson. I think he was definitely better suited for a Pac-12 type team. Him being a West Coast kid, I think he's suited better out there. Now I'm surprised that he went to. Well, I'm only surprised he went to Oregon State. I see why he didn't go to UCLA. I think they had a guy commit there or someone, but I've had a feeling like a Pac-12 school was the right fit for him. And
Hmm.
Oregon State had a good, real. They're on the up and up, and they had a really
Really?
good year
Okay.
this year.
Okay. Okay. So knowing knowing what was expected of DJ, obviously highly touted, obviously, coming into the season thought to be a sleeper Heisman candidate, all of that type of jazz, dual threat, mobile, rocket arm, all of that, and just didn't really, we could look up his stats here, didn't really live up to it. And this is, heading into his, I guess, his senior year now, where he gets one last
Hmm.
shot to prove it. And we're looking at a guy that, completed 62% of his passing, uh, 2,500 yards, 22 touchdowns to 7 picks. Great QB rating, but you didn't really see the hype. Like, I know when me and you spoke earlier in the season, DJ was a name that you brought up, and you was like, "Look, this guy could be something." So, me being the college football novice, I said, "All right, I'll lock in on DJ and see if I see something." And at times I did, and at times I was like, "All right, this dude is kind of mid." So, you know, you're
Yeah,
thinking that the change of scenery was a benefit for him here,
I think the change of scenery. I think Clemson they were kind of that team. They kind of dropped off a little bit.
for sure.
Uh, they they didn't have the guys. I can't even name you a receiver that they have right now that because they're one of the top teams that can be considered. Uh, they can be considered wide receiver U.
Right.
Um, there's not that guy right there. Uh, they don't have anybody at running. Like they were on a down year. Even on defense. Well, defense they always had solid. They were kind of one of those teams too that were like a all star, like not a no star, but an all star defense.
Hmm.
I think they only the top of my head. I think only one guy, uh, Brees. He's the only one that comes to mind on defense for them. But yeah, they just been ever since Trevor Lawrence left. They've been kind of down. But I think the change of scenery kind of helps. I think him being a West Coast kid helps. Going back to the West Coast, um, that style of play and everything like that, and being comfortable with his kind of people too, because a lot of poly kids stay in the Pac-12.
Right.
A lot of them are up in Oregon. That can be a factor as well. You know, going across the country where it's not a big Polynesian uh, population here out here, especially in South Carolina.
Yeah. That definitely matters for sure. I
Yeah,
agree with that.
and also in the ways I think kind of like poly kids should stay in the Pac-12 because of that. Because you
Yeah.
kind of have you don't have to go across the country for that. You have a big population.
Unless you're Tua.
Oh, yeah, but that's what kind of comes to mind. Like even with the
Exactly.
tour. Well, no, I'm sorry, not Tua. I was thinking more. What's his name? Catfish dude. As we saw in the
Oh,
documentary, that kind of
yeah.
matters. They didn't have like a
Manti Te'o.
a poly. Yeah, man, they didn't have a poly population and or like programs at the school, whereas in Oregon State they do,
Hmm.
or any most mainly a lot of the West Coast schools, but I'm thinking in the Power Five, Pac-12. So
Yeah,
yeah, I
no, it makes
see,
sense.
and I think his brother. He has a brother that was a top recruit. I think he committed. I think he might have committed to Oregon. I know he committed to one of the Pac-12 schools,
Pac-12. You know,
but
it makes sense, especially for traveling for their families if they want to come
yeah,
see
that's
them,
only for
time
travel. Like
zones
the
and all that.
families are
Yeah,
coming across the country and coming across to the South.
right. It's a
You
big
know,
difference.
it's a very
those
big difference. And
those flights are very very different. You're adding on the extra 5 6 hours
yeah,
to
adding
that
on that
flight.
and just adding just a culture that's not there. And I think
Correct.
sometimes that can help. Um, like you see a lot of the poly kids on the West Coast how they thrive out there. Like it's hard. Two is one of those rare ones.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, going back to Palomalu with SC back in the day. Yeah, no, it makes sense. Makes sense.
Ray Malauga,
Yeah.
Pico, like
Holy Nada.
what's my
He was UW, right?
oh
Holy
yeah,
Nada was UW. Yeah.
yeah. I think he went to Oregon. I know what you want. I think I'm blanking on his name. He went to Washington.
Okay.
Um, I know Danny Shelton, but there's another one from Washington. But all the Pac-12, pretty much Pac-12 schools. Uh, there's a lot of them.
Samoa
BYU as
U.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah, Utah. Like there's all of it.
Yeah.
It I think it helps. And even like I said, we saw in that documentary. If you watch the documentary on Manti Te'o, having that type of environment or having like a club or whatever at the school, it kind of helps.
For sure. Well,
And like I said, like being close to family or being close to your culture kind of helps. I think will
yeah.
help.
Well, I definitely can't let you leave here without touching on probably the biggest coaching hire that this whole offseason so far anyway, with our boy Deion. I know me and you both thought on the Lost Files episode that he shouldn't go there. Well, he ended up going there. Why do you think he went there? Obviously, this is nothing but a win for Colorado, but in terms of Coach Prime and everything that comes with him with the Louis luggage, why do you think he went there? What's the long term? And we know long term is loose when it comes to Deion anywhere, but long term plan here for Colorado. Give me your thoughts on just Deion choosing to leave Jackson State University for Colorado University.
Well, I think last time when we spoke about this, we didn't have the info that we had
No,
now.
no.
There's a lot of things that have come out, and we see why he left. I think our reason is why we didn't see him go to Colorado is because what Colorado the product that they have now, but also just the location. I think was our one of our things too, and know who Dion is. But once we got info that was coming out, we learned, yeah, take that opportunity.
Hmm.
Um, and I think I'm pretty sure we're both in agreement that it's good to take that. And he did what he set out to do for not just Jackson State, but other HBCUs, as in he gave you a blueprint of what to do.
Does that blueprint work without Deion? That's my
It's a
only
blueprint.
question.
You can
It's a
you can
blueprint.
try.
Not
But
too
the
many
one is to
coaches you
try.
could come in and just pay out of pocket to fix the facilities and to upgrade all the stuff. Like I don't know. Like I get it. The blueprint is there. I think the blueprint's there if you bring in a celeb coach that's willing to put the bread up. Because now we got Ed Reed at Bethune-Cookman. I don't know if Ed Reed is going to come out of pocket to fix those facilities like
Yeah, but
Deion
that's
did
because
allegedly.
but we don't know the what their situation is. Their situation at Bethune-Cookman could be different from Jackson State.
I mean, it's
And we
still
also
swag. So I mean, it can't be that much better, if at all.
I'm not saying, but also Jackson State, where in Mississippi, there's a lot of you know things going. And then, like as I said, we learned later on that Jackson State wasn't doing right by Deion or right by the students
Allegedly.
or
Yep. Yep.
the student athletes or even the town at least. So
Right.
that situation might not be happening at Bethune-Cookman.
Well, I mean, let's see what we have here real quick. We have a 2-9 team. So I mean, Colorado was 1-11, and Deion went over there. Now we got 2-9 with Bethune-Cookman. Hey, they played the U. Maybe that's when they started inroads on Ed Reed when they took that check from the U to get blown out.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a rough. I mean, they're getting blown out by other teams in
Yeah,
the SWAC.
that's the football program, but I'm talking about as the school. The
Oh, as a
school
pro.
wasn't doing
Okay, I
right.
got you. I
Yeah,
got you.
I'm talking about as a school. The school wasn't doing right by Deion, and they
Yeah,
weren't doing right by everybody else. That's what I'm saying. That situation, Bethune-Cookman might be doing better as a school than that. Like the football program might be trash,
copy.
but
Got you.
the the president might not be a scammer or whoever it was. It might not be a scammer.
Let's go talk about it. I'm here for it. Hey,
But that's what was happening, and we didn't have that info.
according to Deion, we have to preface that, because the Deion's the king of spin. He's been spinning this ever since it came out. He did the interview with Shannon Sharp, and there was all propaganda in that interview where he got all of his talking points off. So he's definitely painting his narrative, and it's working. It's working. I'm not saying he's lying yet. I'm just saying it seems very weird that all of a sudden the school is funding with the money when you were acting like you were just coming out of pocket to pay everything. You wanted ticket sales on the back end. They were selling out before you. Now you're claiming you're supposed to get money on the back end, and you had all this exponential growth with the ticket sales, but that doesn't really equate to what the numbers say. I don't know. It's a lot. It's a lot there.
Yeah, like I said, I think it's possible a lot of that stuff was happening. I mean, the dude was coming out of his pocket as well. Like I said, I think the situation might be different. It could be different at Bethune-Cookman. Also, we learned, it takes more than just Deion for all this stuff to happen. You need, you need alumni to, pitch in and actually donate and do all this stuff too. And they have to do their part as well.
Yeah, and that was definitely a talking point Deion made. I think the problem is that if you look up the stats, and I had a chance to dig here, the average HBCU receives 6% from their alumni base. The average PWI receives 8%. I'm not going to be, it's 2%, yes, and you can make a case that the 2% and the base you're pulling from might not make as much as the PWI because of just the wage gap of the races in this country. But I mean, I don't know how much more you can expect when they're almost around the same as PWI. So I get it. You should implore your alumni to always give more. That's the base you should work from. But it's not like they didn't get as much. They got as close to the average as a PWI. So again, it's a talking point. It makes sense. It sounds good from Deion to get that off. But when you crunch the numbers, it's not that much of a difference. I think he just wanted to leave. If he just came out and said, yo, I took the bag, I did my time, I was never going to stay 5, 10, 15 years. I wasn't trying to be the
Well,
real Eddie Robinson.
you can't be mad at somebody taking the bag when he was giving his own bag. The dude was giving his own money.
Yes, but he also was coming from a position of power to begin with because he had the bread. He had the bread to give.
Yeah,
if he wasn't
exactly.
Deion, he's not coming out 300,000. No average college coach.
He needs to recruit on his investment. He needs to get that money
No,
back.
I feel you. No, I get it. Like my only criticism with Deion in this whole Colorado thing has always been it's how he did it. I don't have a problem with him leaving. I understand you cash now. I understand leveraging, trying to cash out while your bag is at its peak. I get it. Now we also need to understand this is the worst Power 5 in all Power 5. They were a 1-11 team for a reason. So it's not like you cashed out and really made a come up. You made a come up just to get into a Power 5, but you went from, a program that was arguably the best in all of HBCU, even though they keep getting smoked by the MEAC, and we understand that. But you had a team that was dominating the SWAC and a force in all of, HBCU to now a Power 5 school in a conference that, as you just mentioned, is on the come up with schools like Oregon State. So as many 5 stars as he wants to bring from Jackson State or in the portal, this isn't going to be a quick fix for the Buffaloes in Colorado. Like, he's going to have to really show he could coach now, because now there's going to be real pressure. There was no pressure at Jackson State. He could have did whatever he wanted there, and just the fact that him being there would have been enough. Now, the hell with all that. Like, they're taking layaway. He was coaching on layaway for Colorado. They're going to want that return on their own return on investment, and fast.
Yeah, I think he just wants to. I think also it could be a challenge just to see what he can do on that level. There's going to be an improvement because you can improve from one win.
I will hope so. Yes.
Yeah, well,
but if they go 7-5, is that a disappointment? If they find a way to go 7-5?
No,
Okay.
because they were 1-11.
Right. Okay. Okay.
1-11 with Josh McCown's son,
which is next to your man's Hackett in Denver is the biggest sign of nepotism ever.
Yeah, so I think, and also he's going to bring in better players.
He's bringing the Louis.
Yeah, he's bringing luggage with him, and I think Deion's my cousin called straight that, like, he's more of a, I won't say facilitator, because he's not going to be out there coaching hands-on one. He's more like kind of like the facilitator.
Yep.
He's going to put people in position, to help. I just watched something where it was like, I think Bradley Edwards was talking about something about Nick Saban, and it's like, you have so many lions.
Yeah.
You have so many lions. How do you tame them? He's like, well, I have all these lion tamers.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
He's not the only one. He has a bunch of them to tame those lions. I think
Dabo does the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
Deion's one of those. I think Deion, and then Deion's just a great motivator as well. And I can see him motivating those to be better and get better. And I think he has a chance to do that. And then it's going to help him go to an even better gig.
Well, that's my next question. That's my next question, because clearly, Deion in the Shannon Sharp interview said, he really only wanted to give Jackson State 2 years, or the AD was only expecting Deion to stay 2 years and he stayed 3. I'm thinking if he could turn this around within 2 years, I don't think he sees the third year of this contract. I think he's out again.
Every coach does that, and that's what every coach does.
But will the vitriol be the same? Wait, if he skates on the PWI after building them back up, you see how HBCUs in mass were like, this is blasphemy, all of that. how will that energy be? Well, how will Deion receive that energy different when it's coming from a PWI crowd saying, yo, you left us for dead?
I don't think that. I think like we get it because it happens all the time. Especially
You think Colorado's not going to be tight?
there'll be some to type, but there's going to be a lot more to understand.
For his sake, I hope
Especially-
so.
Especially if he leaves. Especially if he leaves for someone who's a powerhouse or someone who's greater than Colorado.
I think
know.
they'll only cut him some bail if it's like Florida State. If it's
that's
like a
what I'm saying.
place
If
he
it's
has a
someone-
connection to. But if it's not that, if he just bounces the bounce, like he just goes to the SEC just cause, like if he goes to Ole Miss, I don't think Colorado fans are going to understand that.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be too much pushback. Colorado knows who they are.
Okay. I mean, I just hope they do once he builds them. But once him and them. Well, here's another question, and I'll begin to wrap this here. Is all of this tied to Shador? Because in theory, because there's already people projecting him to be a Heisman candidate next year. I think that's a reach.
Yeah,
But just in regards to, clearly Deion's pushes, his whole reason into getting the coaching, and that's why I think watching that Shannon interview, he kind of gave you some of the tea, like subliminally. His whole thing of coaching was because he saw Shador and his brother being coached, he felt inferiorly, if that's a word. So his whole mind, he was never really trying to get into coaching, but he saw his sons being coached to a lesser level than what he thought they should have been. So he said, the hell with it, I'll do it myself. Once Shador, assuming he continues to play at this level and gets better against better competition, once he gets to the league, what's the incentive for Deion to keep? If he only got into this to make sure his sons were coached well, if Shador makes it to the league, what's the incentive for him to keep going? Because it seems to be clearly aligned where wherever I go, my son is there with me or vice versa. Because he was recruited by Alabama. Shador could have went on his own by himself and left Prime. But he stayed with his dad, and now he's following his dad even from Jackson State, where I'm sure he was treated like a king, to now he's going to be in Colorado. I'm assuming treated again like a king, but it's a little different being treated like a king at HBCU than at PWI. But talk to me about if you think this is tied to Shador or if Prime even has a longevity past Shador leaving for the league.
Well, one thing we got to remember who Deion is.
Mm-hmm.
He has a song called Must Be the Money.
Must be the money, for sure.
So we can't be surprised when a man who was flashy and always about the money and everything wants to leave for money.
Right.
He's told us this his whole career.
Yes.
So we can't be really, like, you can't be surprised and mad about it as well.
Right. But if the goal is to make sure Shador gets the bag, and then once Shakur becomes, assuming he's a day one draft pick, all right, now my son's got the bag. He could be all about the money, and he's very much the spitting image of his father in terms of flash. All right, cool. My job as a father is done. Maybe my job as a coach is slowly coming to an end now because I've done all that I can to put my son in a position like I was.
That's hard to say right now.
Okay.
Yeah, because you don't know. Like, it could be, he's trying to get his son in a better position. It could be he could love coaching.
Right. And both things could be true. I think he definitely has a love for football. I think he definitely has, if he didn't have the bug of loving coaching before, he definitely has it now. So it could be something to where even after Shador leaves, he still wants to stay. But I just think it's interesting the fact that a lot of this stuff seems to be aligned with the timeline of getting Shador to the league. And because he said he's always played quarterback. He's never played nothing else. Like, he always put him in that position, and he wants to see that through, even at this level now, where now he's in the Power 5, and Shador, to some people, is entering next season as a Heisman Trophy candidate.
Which is dumb.
Do you have an early scouting report on Shador? Or are you a fan of Shador?
No. It's not him. It's just, he's at Colorado. The team is 1-11.
But if he balls out crazy, if he puts up video game numbers and they're 6-6, there's no way that's a Heisman finalist, right?
No.
Okay. All right. All right.
Heisman finalist also has to have his team like in the hunt.
Okay. Okay. No, I agree. I agree that there's no way. I don't care what type of numbers, because and that's kind of my concern is like they're really just going to be the Colorado primes for the next few years, because he's just going to do everything to make sure his guys get on. That's why he told them kids that were already at Colorado, you can hit the portal. Like you don't have to stay here. Like, because I'm bringing all my horses with me. Because clearly you guys were 1-11, so once that runs through, or once that exhausts itself, like we see how Jackson State is in the form of how Prime left. They have a blueprint, but we're not sure what's actually left. What's going to be in the wake of, Colorado whenever, Prime is done with them? And I think it's tied to Shador's going to get his numbers. He's going to do everything, press every button to make sure he goes crazy, goes ham, and gets every opportunity to put numbers on the board. But once that's over, then what's the focus? Are the 5 stars going to keep coming after Shador leaves? Because is Prime going to be as engaged, as dedicated? It's something to think about.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see.
Sure.
But I like the move. I haven't.
He had to make it. Yeah.
He had to make the move.
Yeah.
He had to make the move.
Well, that was Michael Johnson. I want to thank him. He is a photographer, videographer, filmographer, also a huge part of the Not That Serious podcast. Find them wherever you listen to this podcast. I want to thank him for coming in. This is time number 3, second time officially. So, MJ, I really do appreciate it. Any projects you're working on, or anything you want the audience to tap into?
Other than just the podcast, Not That Serious podcast, and look for me if you want some photos done or anything like that. And the next year, I
Got
should
that
be
medium
taking
format. I saw that. Congrats.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's definitely elevate. If you want some great portraits done of you, I'm the man to look for. And yeah, that's what I'm gearing up for. I'm gearing up for a great 2023 and beyond.
Well, I will have his social information down in the podcast description, or if you're on YouTube, in the video description. So make sure to tap in with him and support him and let him know you found him via this podcast. So for MJ, Michael Johnson of the Not That Serious podcast, filmographer, videographer, photographer, I am the Sam D, Sam Duesmay Jr. We out.